Before this video goes anywhere, I just want to say a huge thank you for all the support on the first 2 guides I uploaded. Those videos have done like a combined 30,000 views or so in under 2 weeks. We've gained like 400 new subscribers in that time, and all the comments have been super positive, so thank you. On to this video though. As I alluded to last time, the plan for this episode is to run around the starting area of the game and just grab things that are going to be helpful. Weapon upgrade materials, flask upgrades, runes, ashes of war, sites of grace, map fragments, and we'll get a ton of quest lines rolling as well. As promised last time, there will be no combat required. This is just running around on torrents. Now I want to clarify, this is definitely not a get overpowered early video. This is just meant to get you a nice foothold in the beginning of the game, and it's very much designed around the walkthrough that I am making. It's not like a super self-contained starting loop. If you want to use it like that, I think it's still a nice way to start the game, but it's definitely meant to feed into the next episode of this walkthrough. So there are a ton of videos on YouTube that'll show you how to get a single weapon upgraded to a really high level early on though, if you don't mind running ahead to later areas of the game. And you're more than welcome to check those out if that interests you, but that's definitely not what this video is for. This route will get you a nice stock of low-level smithing stones though, so you can upgrade a couple of weapons you might be interested in right off the bat, which is cool if you're a new player, because there's really no sense in like juicing a weapon that you don't know if you like yet, right? So try a few things out. But since it's pretty much just running, I opted for a post-commentary format for this episode instead of trying to make small talk while I run around. So I bumped up the speed a bit to get through it faster, and I did my best to show where I was on the map whenever possible, so it should be fairly easy to follow along. If you need to slow it down on YouTube, you can always do that. I'm just going to let the footage roll for the most part, but I will pop back in if there's something that needs to be explained, so don't crank the volume up super high and then get freaked out when I start talking again. But yeah, I'll see you soon. Alright, so as we come up to this big tree, this is a minor Erd tree, and these will pretty much always have some crystal tears under them. They sometimes might be guarded by a boss, but not this one luckily. I'll talk more about those in a second. But we also have these teardrop scarabs. These guys will try to run away and will despawn if they do manage to get away from you, but you can just rest or reload the game and they'll reset, so no problem. You'll know one is nearby if you hear a kind of shimmering, ringing sound. There are blue and red varieties that will replenish the corresponding flask for you when killed, and if they have any appearance other than blue or red, they will not respawn when killed, but they do drop something valuable. Usually somber smithing stones or ashes of war like the one that we just saw. For the most part, they just glow white or silver like that one. There's some trickier ones that look like phantoms and teleport around, or maybe they explode after they die, but you know, if they're not red or blue, you should probably go kill it and see what it has. I also grabbed those golden sunflowers around the base of the tree because those will come in really handy for crafting later. As we make our way across the road, make sure to sneak and be quiet, but you'll hear a howling sound and you can see the character that is making the sound up on top of the ruins. Take note of that because hearing the howl triggers the beginning of a quest line. At this church, we're going to find our first sacred tear, which makes our flasks replenish more health and FP, and we also get the flask of wondrous physic. This is a special flask that we will only ever have one charge of, but it will replenish when you rest. To use it, you want to choose the mix wondrous physic option at a site of grace, and that will let you mix in those crystal tears that we just picked up a minute ago. Every crystal tear will have a unique effect, and you can mix any 2 tiers into the physic to have it do all sorts of things when you drink it, like buff different attack types, damage types, temporarily boost an attribute by a few levels, all kinds of things. Whenever you get a chance, definitely look through your collection of crystal tiers and figure out what combination suits you the best. I would also recommend passing the time to morning or noon around this point, because you're going to run into a boss or 2 up ahead that only spawn at night, and they're going to make your life a bit harder. This is one of a few paintings that we'll find in the game, and for these you just need to look at the painting and find the place that the artist was sitting when they painted it to get a reward. Pretty simple, and I will of course show you where all those are in this walkthrough. I usually save little things like that for the end of a zone, so we'll probably come back and clean that stuff up before we move on to the next area. In this field up ahead, you'll find some Fulgur Bloom, which spawns in these random fields where lightning is constantly striking, and is unsurprisingly used to craft lightning stuff. Then up ahead on this plateau, there's going to be a bunch of trolls. Lure one over to the glowing statue in the middle and they'll break it so you can get a bunch of smithing stones out of it. Now this is actually a decent rune farming spot that I like to use the first time I played this game, but it is a little hit or miss. If you can manage to corral the trolls together, they actually hit each other when they attack and will constantly stun each other and will eventually pretty much just all kill each other until there's just one left who will probably be pretty hurt. And they drop 1,000 runes each, so 5,000 from the whole pack. The trouble is if you get unlucky with them spamming the roar attack that you saw, which can easily knock you off torrent, kind of annoying. I'm definitely not claiming that's the best rune farming spot, but 5,000 runes for just running in circles isn't too bad. Then we have War Master Shaq. You want to talk to Bernal, the NPC here, who also sells you some Ashes of War, most notably the no skill Ash of War, which you can put on your shield or offhand weapon if you are using one. And what it'll do is it'll default to your main hand weapon skill when you use it, so you don't have to two-hand your weapon before using its skill. It also doesn't matter what you say to Bernal's question, just make sure to exhaust his dialogue like you will with every NPC. And also don't come here at night because a boss will spawn in that shack instead of Bernal. After you grab this golden seed, you want to head up the hill to Stormhill Shack, and if you take the road, a bunch of wolves spawn, but I randomly had the idea for the first time to just go the other way, and sure enough, no wolves. I might be a genius. You want to talk to Rodrika in the shack, and this will start her quest line, which we're going to kind of accidentally progress in this video. More on that later. Up here, I usually just go for the spirit ashes on the second grave to not risk getting stuck on all the jellyfish, but the magic grease is there if you want to risk it. Get out of there and run as far as you need to get out of combat, and then you want to warp back to Church of LA. Talk to Kale and you'll be able to tell him about the howling sound you heard back at Mistwood Ruins, and he'll give you the finger snap gesture. As always, make sure to exhaust his dialogue.
Next time, don't fret yourself. There are if them white people, which is why, but thanks to I think this your people. The Hasi that we have a say immense much that is our castaway. Goodbye for now.
I did let this scarab get away, totally on purpose of course, just wanted to prove the point, but you can see that if I reload the game, he just respawns, so it's no problem at all. He always jumps off, and the one time I started going off the edge, he just decided to not jump off. Super cool. This is Alexander. Hit him with a few charged heavy attacks. Don't worry, you're not going to hurt him. And once he's out, you guessed it, exhaust his dialogue. I'm going to say that phrase so many times in this series, but as someone who has made NPC questline videos in the past and has been asked why a questline is broken ad nauseum, I promise like 99% of the time it's not broken, you just didn't actually exhaust the dialogue last time you saw the NPC, so they didn't move on. If you comment on one of these videos that an NPC's quest is not working in your game and I find out that you didn't exhaust their dialogue, I will be under your bed tonight.
I'm known as Eden of the village here, and worse if you back. They'll turn back. They'll turn back.
At this point, you want to warp to Agheel Lake South and make your way even further south toward the bridge to Weeping Peninsula. At the top of this hill, you're going to find this like stone crater thing called an Everjail. These contain boss fights if you interact with them, but this one in particular, you can get an NPC named Blythe to help you with if you go back to Mistwood Ruins where the Howling was. Use that finger snap gesture we just got from Merchant Kale, and then talk to Blythe there to progress his questline. He basically just solos the boss, and if you talk to him afterwards, you can get another Somber Smithing Stone too, so if that's something that you want right now, and you don't want to wait for another episode or two to get it, feel free to give that a shot. This is Irina. I'm telling you this for two reasons. The first reason is I will name drop her later and I don't want you to be like, who is Irina? The second reason is that obviously I just want to remind you to exhaust her dialogue. At this merchant up ahead, I'm going to go ahead and buy a Smithing Stone 2. If you are going to use a unique weapon, there's no need to do this. You want Somber Smithing Stones, but if you're going to use a standard weapon that takes standard Smithing Stones to upgrade, then this route that we're running is going to leave us 2 Smithing Stone 2s short of getting a weapon 2 plus 5. So to compensate for that, we're going to buy a Smithing Stone 2 from this guy and one more from another merchant a bit later. If you don't have enough runes to afford it, that's fine, because I am an absolute mastermind and incorporated golden rune pickups into this route. So you can just pop a few of those from your inventory and ball out. You're welcome. Save like 2,200 runes though, don't ball out too hard yet. Saving money and being financially responsible is gangster too. Don't forget that. Then you want to hit the spirit spring and aim for the top of this wall. If you land on the tower, that's fine. There's a shield up there that we'll get to later, but you can just jump back down into the spirit spring to cushion your fall, and then aim for this wall again. Use the tree to break your fall, grab the item. Now after this point, you want to be very careful. There's a giant golem with a bow that will emerge from the fog in the distance, and we don't want him to hit us for obvious reasons. So just prance around and jump whenever you hear him loose an arrow. After you grab these items from the beach, you want to make your way back to the Grace by the merchant that we just got. In my head, I thought you would be able to warp back there, but that golem is not going to give up, so you'll just have to run all the way back. If we were going to have to run all the way back anyway, it would have made more sense to not do that jumping thing over the wall and just grab that item on the way back. Could have gotten the poison mist incantation I skipped for no reason also. Oh well. Hindsight is 2020. We'll be back for it, don't worry. I just don't know why I didn't get it now, and it's sending me into a downward spiral. I mentioned that you could do this earlier, but here's an actual demonstration of jumping down into the spirit springs. As you're falling, you'll see the little wind effect under Torrent that lets you know that you won't take any damage when you land. By the time you see it, it would be way too late anyway, so I don't know how much that really sets the mind at ease when you're jumping off a cliff, but it is what it is. The range of the spirit spring and precision with which you need to land on it is super forgiving though, so don't worry about it. Alright, so this merchant will supply us with that other smithing stone 2 that we need to get a weapon to +5. You can buy the other 2 he has if you want, but we need 6 more to get to +6, so you'll still be 4 short even with those. And I told you to save 2200 runes earlier because I also like to buy the lantern while I'm here. There's some very dark caves in this game, and while a torch will provide you with more light, the lantern gives off plenty of light in my opinion, and you can hang it from your waist, which means both of your character's hands are free, unlike with a torch. Very handy, no pun intended. Also, side note, if there's a weapon that any of these merchants have that seems cool and you want to give it a try, feel free to buy that too. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. So what we're doing now is actually circumventing Stormvale Castle, the first legacy dungeon, to get to Liurnia of the Lakes quite a bit earlier than we normally would. Liurnia is the next major zone we'll tackle, but normally you would clear everything in Limgrave where we've been exploring first, then fight a major boss named Margit, then clear Stormvale Castle, kill the final boss there, and then it would drop you off right where we are now. The advantage of doing it this way is resting at a site of grace outside of Limgrave and Weeping Peninsula, like this one in Liurnia for instance, is one of the ways to prompt Melina to invite us to Round Table Hold, which she will do the next time you rest after activating this first grace in Liurnia. I'm going to ignore it for a second because we have a couple more things to grab, but Round Table Hold is where most of the NPCs hang out. There's a good merchant there, the blacksmith. It's just your main hub in this game, and it's nice to get there as soon as possible. Before we go though, we can start Hayata's questline here. She appears by this grace after you've spoken to Irina and received her letter, which we did earlier. Then we can go down the hill, get another sacred tear, and start Thops's questline.
You're in, believe it or not, for a... Well, bless you, you're a true, my name presumably. Apology, I'm afraid, all right.
Finally, you can warp back to Stormhill Shack, and you'll find that Rodrika is gone and left a golden seed behind. The next step of her questline, as of the last time we spoke to her, was to go to Stormvale Castle, retrieve an item, and bring it back to her, which would get us a golden seed, but by essentially skipping Stormvale Castle as we just did, it just progresses that step automatically and drops the golden seed here instead. There are no consequences to doing it this way, and we're not actually skipping the castle, it's just a large area that we aren't ready for yet, but rest assured we will get around to it. With that, you can talk to Melina, head to Round Table Hold, and we end with 4 golden seeds, 5 sacred tears, 21 smithing stone 1s, 6 smithing stone 2s, 3 somber smithing stone 1s, a somber smithing stone 2, enough to get a regular weapon to +5, and a unique weapon to +2, which is equivalent in strength to a +5 normal weapon. 20-ish sites of grace, a bunch of crystal tears, wondrous physics, some ashes of war, started a ton of quest lines, and various other things, all in comfortably under an hour. Not a bad start.